will sanctify space and time, first with the land acknowledgement. Here we are in Half Moon Bay, the land of the Ramaytush Ohlone people.
And wherever you are, we invite you to give honor to the land itself. We're very grateful to be on this beautiful land and to the original peoples of these lands. Because no matter where we are all on native land.
And we sanctify time with the lighting of the candles. So we'll begin with the blessing for the lighting. Listen, you want the honor?
And the candles probably won't stay lit, but they might. We'll see what
happens. Use that, they might.
You might.
That's okay. We are going with the flow tonight.
As the sun descends, we feel a sense of peace that is possible. That we can make that choice to make this day a sacred day. And doing that in the context of community is even better. And it's this kind of experience, emotion, connection that can transform the world. This next song, Olam Chesed Yibaneh, means the world is built by chesed, kindness, right?
Loving kindness.
And then the other verses are, I will build this world with love, right?
Mm-hmm. And you will build this world from love, with love, or from love. And if we build this world from love, then God will build this world from love. So it's saying we can't just, sit there and expect Spirit to do it all for us. We need to be co-creation. We need to co-create the world that we want to see. There we go. Olam chesed yibaneh, yadadai, dai, dai, yadadai, dai. Olam chesed yibaneh, yadadai, dai, dai, yadadai, dai. Olam chesed yibaneh. Chesed yibaneh, yadadai, dai, 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 dai. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Mimelech, Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Mimelech, Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, dai, dai, dai. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, yai, dai, 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 yai, dai, 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 yai, dai, 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 yai, dai, dai, dai. Welcome, angels and messengers of peace.
And horses.
And horses
Yes.
of peace and healing.
I wonder what they think.
I know what you were saying.
Do you have any idea, Darius, what they must be thinking? Well, we welcome also the Sabbath as though she were a bride. This is an old song from hundreds of years ago it was sung by the mystics in Spot as they went out into the fields. So this was intended to be an outdoor service from the very beginning. What page is Lecha Dodi on?
It's on page 41. And for those of you who are less familiar with the Hebrew, la 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 and yai dai dai always works, even if we're singing the Hebrew.
Lecha Dodi Likrat Kala B'nei Shabbat Nekabela Lecha Dodi Likrat Kala B'nei Shabbat Nekabela Shamor v'zachor b'dibor echad Ishmianu el hamyuchad Adonai echad u'shemo echad לשם ולתפארת ולתהילה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה.
בואי ושלום עטרת בעלה, גם בשמחה ובצהלה, תוך אמוני עם סגולה. בואי חלה, בואי חלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה.
Be seated as we transition now. Baruchu et Adonai, Baruch Adonai,
Baruch Adonai,
Hamevorah,
Hamevorah,
Leolam,
Leolam, Vahed.
The traditional prayers that follow call us to become mindful of the cycles and seasons and the changing of, light and dark and temperatures and just all the things that are come in mixtures of one kind or another. Ma'ariv aravim, that's like evening, but also a mixture of that in-between place. And we call to mind the teachings that help us to become mindful and to become grateful of the blessings that we enjoy and the connection that we feel to one another, to all the creatures and all of creation, and to what we call Adonai. We affirm that as we recite together the Shema.
Page 65. Shema Yisrael, Havaya Eloheinu, Havaya Echad, Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Vaed.
We can be seated.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וגשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו את התורות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובישעריך.
I have a different interpretation and translation of the Ve'ahavta. I'll read just a bit of it by Aurora Levins Morales, and then I'll read a bit more later in the course of the service. Say these words when you lie down and when you rise up, when you go out and when you return, in times of mourning and in times of joy. Inscribe them on your doorposts, embroider them on your garments, tattoo them on your shoulders. Teach them to your children, your neighbors, your enemies. Recite them in your sleep. Here in the cruel shadow of empire, another world is possible.
למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם אני הוויה אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי מארצכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים אני הוויה אלוהיכם.
The blessing that follows is a blessing by which we give thanks for the miracles that surround us and for redemption that we can experience in our own lives as our ancestors sang this song on the shores of the sea.
On page 79.
And this is a melody that we call the cowboy melody.
I'm not
right?
sure. Somewhere I have who wrote it, but Avram, who plays with us for High Holy Days, started calling it the cowboy melody, so we thought it would be appropriate for tonight. Mi chamocha b'alim Adonai, mi chamocha nedar b'kodesh nora tilot, ha-sefer le'yai, dai, 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 yai, dai, 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 yai, dai, 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 yai, dai, 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 dai. Oseh shalom b'mromav, uyaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru, v'imru, amen. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol ha'olam. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol ha'olam. Amen. May the one who creates harmony above make peace for us, for all of Israel, and for all who dwell on earth. And let us say,
So it's funny how this all came about, and it was kind of spontaneous. As I was reading the Torah portion this week and thinking about the story of Balaam and Balak, it came to me and it seemed to make perfect sense, and it still does. So, the story goes that there is the king of Moab, Balak, and he wants to curse the Israelites. He sees they're growing in number and he feels threatened. So he hires this local prophet who wasn't even Jewish and asks him to curse the Israelites. And the prophet, first, his name is Balaam. First he says, nah, I don't do that kind of stuff. And then the king sends some messengers with some remuneration of sorts, and so he said, okay, I'll consider it. So as he was on his way to talk to the king about what exactly he wanted, he was riding on his donkey, and he's going along the road, and as I wrote my message this morning, God wasn't so happy with his choice, so he sent in a messenger, an angel, to stand in the road with a drawn sword. And here he is, this big, important prophet, who's supposed to be able to see things the rest of us can't see, and yet he can't see the angel in the road. But his donkey, of course, does. And his donkey turns to the side and, along one side of the road and maybe goes into a ditch, and Balaam says, what's the matter with you? And he whips him and he gets him to go back up on the road. But the donkey does not want to go forward, and then it goes to the other side of the road and crushes Balaam's leg against a wall. And Balaam whips him and he's just furious. And then the third time, the donkey just sits down. And Balaam whips him a third time, and then the donkey opens its mouth and speaks. You know the story, right? I mean, how many kind of remember the story, right? Wow, a few. And he says, why are you hitting me like this? I've been your faithful donkey all this time. And it's funny that Balaam doesn't even seem surprised. He talks back and he says, well, if I had a sword in my hand right now, I would kill you with it. But then it says God opened Balaam's eye and he could see the angel. And then he realized exactly what had been going on. And he bows down to the angel, and then he doesn't apologize to the donkey, unfortunately, but he does say, listen, I won't go if you don't want me to go. And God says, oh, okay, go ahead. Just go. Just whatever I tell you to say, that's what you'll say. And so that's what Balaam tells the king, and the king says, okay, we'll see how it goes. So they go up on a mountaintop, and I'm thinking here, this is Castle Rock, which is quite a mountain up here. That would be really interesting. But so they set up the sacrifices, and they go through all these procedures, and then Balaam opens his mouth to curse the Israelites that he could see in the valley below. And what does he say? That would have been good. In case the audience didn't hear on Zoom. Hee-haw, right? But no. He says, there you go. He says, Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov, mishkenotecha Yisrael. Now, does that sound familiar to anyone? Yeah, yes. It's a traditional part of the Shabbat morning service. Ma tovu, oh, how goodly are your tents, O Jacob, your dwelling places, O Israel. What kind of a curse is that, right? But that's what God told him to say, and that's what he said. And that is enshrined in our liturgy to this day. But the king wasn't satisfied with that. So they go up and set up on another mountaintop, and I believe he does it at least once, maybe twice more, and still just words of blessing come out. So it's a curious story, and that's pretty much the end of that, and then it moves on to some other narrative. And the rabbis have some debate later on as to whether Balaam was a good prophet or a bad prophet. I kind of thought he was pretty cool. I mean, he wasn't Jewish, but he had this direct relationship with God and just was very tight. And, was willing to admit that he hadn't seen the angel at first and he blessed the Israelites. But the rabbis are kind of ambivalent about their attitude toward him because, the fact that the messengers came with gifts and money for him, they make them think that maybe he had ulterior motives, that he wasn't entirely pure. And there's some incident later where, I don't know, he's associated with some of Israelites' enemies. So I think the rabbi's opinion of him is not so great. But the point is, it was the donkey that really inspired me to be here today with the creatures that surround us and their incredible intelligence and what they're able to see and to feel. We have no idea, and we discount their intelligence horrendously, really. Not just horses, but dogs. They're really all animals and all of creation. I think we would do well to take a much more humble position in relation to all of creation. And so it's kind of a sad topic to me, really. It makes me really sad to think about the sins that we've committed against creatures and creation and the trauma, the intergenerational trauma that we've caused, and the magnitude of suffering in this world. And yet, people are motivated by other things, like what's happening with in Washington D.C. with all our plans that we've been working on to help mitigate climate change, and that's all down the drain now, because of this guy who's like a millionaire because of the coal business, and it's really sad. So that's what made me think about this translation of the Ve'ahavta. Carrie Lobel, you know Carrie, sent it to me this morning. She was inspired. Maybe something I wrote this morning made her think about it. And I wanted to share with you a bit more. And I asked her if she'd read it again during the High Holy Days on Rosh Hashanah, because it's really powerful. She says, this is Aurora Levins Morales. Defend the world in which we win as if it were your child. It is your child. Defend it as if it were your lover. It is your lover. When you inhale and when you exhale, breathe the possibility of another world into the 37.2 trillion cells of your body until it shines with hope. Then imagine more. Imagine rape is unimaginable. Imagine war is a scarcely credible rumor. That the crimes of our age, the grotesque inhumanities of greed, the sheer and astounding shamelessness of it, the vast fortunes made by stealing lives, the horrible normalcy it came to have, is unimaginable to our heirs, the generations of the free. Imagine. Don't waver, don't despair, don't let despair sink its sharp teeth into the throat of which you sing, with which you sing. Escalate your dreams. Make them burn so fiercely that you can follow them down any dark alleyway of history and not lose your way. Make them burn clear as a starry, drinking gourd over the grim fog of exhaustion, and keep walking. It is possible to succumb to despair when we think about the trauma, the horrors, and the challenges ahead. But our faith tells us to look forward to a brighter future with hope, and to work and fight when necessary to make that world, that possibility, a reality. She concludes by saying, hold hands, share water, keep imagining, so that we and the children of our children's children may live. I do want to invite Joell and Darius, if you want to come up, just to say just a bit about the work that you're doing here. Yvette, you okay with that? Unless you want to wait till the end of the service, but
whatever you like. This is.
yeah, come on up. I think this couple is an example of exactly what I'm talking about. The work that you do with the helping the horses that have been traumatized and the children and families, and how you bring them together is like a miracle. Make sure you're in the Zoom screen. Come a little closer.
Oh, there.
Too.
You see Carrie?
No.
Well, what
Thank
can you
you.
tell us about
What can
what
I?
you're doing?
In 2004, we had no idea how to start a nonprofit, but I was teaching a man who did, and he'd spent his career in nonprofits mostly because the kindness of other people had saved his life when he was destitute and homeless, and was a prostitute on the streets, and he helped us create what we now know as Square Peg back in 2004. And I had thought about starting a therapeutic riding program, and I had worked around racehorses my whole life, and what I saw in therapeutic riding programs was that there was a lot of really good physical therapy being done, but I wasn't a physical therapist, and I wasn't interested and motivated by being a physical therapist. I knew there were people much more talented than me doing that work. And then I realized that it was the relationship between the horses and the people that was the real magic. And I thought about horses that needed a second chance, and realizing that we could see ourselves in honoring that, in showing that all life has value, that there's no such thing as negative value. A racehorse costs about $300 a day to keep in training. So an injured racehorse goes from very valuable to negative value overnight sometimes. And so we created a space where all life has value, and that relationship and understanding that what makes you different is what makes you special. And that was what started Square Peg. And our friend who helped us start Square Peg died pretty tragically at the end of 2007. And then, of course, the economic world collapsed in 2008. And had it not been for the legacy that he left us, we wouldn't have made it through. And so Square Peg has just been one miracle after another, where we've stayed true to our mission. And these animals have carried us and borne us up so beautifully. I realized yesterday, one of my staff took a picture of me. The horse was actually standing on that pedestal over there, and I was petting him and playing with him, and I realized I had this moment that said, my life is exactly what the dream I had when I was 9 years old, that I was living that life. So I feel like, we're some of the luckiest people that we know to take a childhood dream and fascination and be able to use that dream and that passion to help people feel more whole, and provide a safe space for the horses and for the people who come here. And
Amen.
Amen, amen, amen.
Do you know the word tikkun olam? Have you heard that? Tikkun olam. It means repairing the world. It's a core Jewish value that we believe the world is broken, and it's for us to be God's partners in doing the work of tikkun olam. So, olam. So thank you, and we're glad to be your partners.
Thanks to be here. Thank you to be here in this beautiful place with these beautiful people. Thank you. Shall we move on to healing?
Yeah. Yes, okay, so we pray for healing for those in need, and for the horses, for the people connected with Square Peg, and for all of those we know in need of healing and those we don't know. So I invite you to call out the names of people who you might be praying for. In the chat you can add names, and we'll sing these words of healing. We'll say the blessing for the fruit of the vine, and you can give Billy the fruit of the tree.
So if you have a drink, so let's.
Baruch
atah
Eloheinu
melech haolam,
borei
peri
hagafem.
Baruch atah Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz b'tei avon. All right.
These are the words that Balaam spoke as he blessed us and our ancestors.
Vatovu